Welcome to The Planner's Perspective with Jessie Kara. This is the podcast for wedding planners and couples navigating South Asian weddings and everything that comes with them. Culture, family dynamics, money, design, expectations, and the real conversations no one prepares you for. I'm Jessie Kara, a South Asian wedding planner and educator trusted by couples and families when things get complicated. Here we go beyond timelines and Pinterest boards and talk about what actually happens behind the scenes. If you're a planner stepping into South Asian weddings or a couple who wants to understand the process more deeply, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. Welcome to The Planner's Perspective. I'm your host, Jessie Kara, award-winning wedding planner and designer. Today's episode is one I've been thinking about for a long time and what I knew I would record as soon as I started the podcast. It's because it centers around a word that gets used constantly in the wedding industry, but rarely with clarity. We're talking about luxury. It's actually a word that makes me cringe when I see it on Instagram bios, and that may make me sound a little bit judgmental, but sometimes what I see in the photos and the bio, they just don't add up. And it makes me think, okay, what do people think, or what do clients think? What do vendors think? And what is the image that is portrayed when one sees the word luxury? Because to me, what it actually means and what it doesn't is why a dollar figure alone does not make a wedding or a service luxury. And this episode is for couples planning high investment weddings, planners and vendors navigating the word themselves, and anyone who's ever felt like something looked luxury on paper but didn't feel that way in real life. This conversation is meant to slow things down and offer a clearer lens. The word luxury has become incredibly diluted. It's often positioned as a number or a threshold, a look, a label. But after more than 2 decades in the wedding industry, I can tell you with confidence that a higher budget does not automatically mean a better experience. I've worked on weddings with very large budgets that felt stressful, chaotic, and reactive. The keyword there is reactive. And I've worked on weddings with far more modest budgets that felt calm, intentional, and beautifully supported. By the end of this episode, you'll walk away with a clear definition on what luxury actually is, a better way to evaluate planners, vendors, and services, and a new perspective on what creates a truly elevated experience. This is not about calling people out, because personally, and I'll talk about it more in this episode, myself right now, I do not think my client experience is at the level that it needs to be, which is why it's a focus for the Q1 of 2026. As I said, it's not about calling people out. It's about questioning how the word itself is being used. So let's start with what luxury is not. Luxury is not a price tag. 2 couples can have a $500,000 budget and have completely different outcomes. Because one couple might be hosting strictly just a wedding and a reception for 240 guests. And another might be hosting a joint pre-wedding event, 2 different ceremonies because it's a fusion wedding, and maybe a reception for 200 guests. Those weddings are not comparable. So how would we then compare just based on that $500,000 price tag? So neither is automatically luxury, because luxury is also not aesthetic alone. Beautiful styling does not equal a luxury experience. I have seen portfolios with silk flowers and sparse candles calling luxury, and I personally don't think that that's luxury, even if it photographs well. A curated Instagram feed does not replace systems, communication, or care. And saying you are luxury without having clear processes, boundaries, or a refined client experience is not luxury. It's branding. And in some cases, it's not even that. Luxury is an emotion first. Luxury is how something feels long before it's how something looks. It's that feeling of ease. It's being anticipated rather than managed, being taken care of without having to ask. Luxury is emotional safety. It's trust. It's flow. And that feeling begins the moment someone inquires, not the day of the wedding. Luxury is not reactive, it is anticipatory. Once you experience that difference, it becomes very hard to unsee. Now, to help paint a relatable contrast, let's talk about everyday luxury experience that you're likely to encounter. I want you to think about walking into a car dealership, because walking into a car dealership, you'll probably do that more than once in your life, whereas getting married, typically you're doing once, right? So you can walk into two dealerships selling the same vehicle at the same price point and have completely different experiences. I'm going to share an example from my exact experience looking at the exact same luxury vehicle where I called in and booked an appointment to see the same vehicle at two different locations to see where I could get a price on the same product. I'm talking the exact same specs, okay? Imagine this. In one, you're standing around waiting, you're repeating yourself, you're wondering who you're supposed to speak to. And once you do get the chance to speak with someone, you feel like you're being sold to. They are using every sales tactic in the book to get you to sign for the vehicle today, because if you don't do it today, you're going to miss out. And even though the year has just started, that's it. You're never going to get this 2026 model ever again. Now, in the other instance, someone greets you by name. They already know why you're there. They've reviewed your file. They ask questions that show that they've listened, not questions just to fill space. You're offered water without asking. Your time is respected. You're not rushed, but you're also not left waiting. Based on the answer you gave, you're being given the features that best support you and your needs. That car did not change. The price of the vehicle did not change, but the experience definitely did. And that is luxury. Luxury is built behind the scenes. Luxury brands understand something that often gets missed in weddings. Luxury is created through systems. When you walk into a high-end retail store, the experience feels effortless. But that ease is the result of training, structure, and internal alignment. Somebody spent a lot of time and they made some decisions. How clients are greeted, how long someone should wait before being acknowledged, how information is passed internally, what happens when something goes wrong. None of that is accidental. Yet, in the wedding industry, the word is luxury is sometimes used while the back end is held together with duct tape. Slow inquiry responses, unclear next steps, inconsistent communication. That disconnection is felt even if clients can't always articulate it. Luxury is consistency. Luxury is reliability. Luxury is knowing what happens next without having to ask. Let's talk about what luxury actually feels like. I want to ground this in real experiences. I was staying at the host hotel for a client's wedding, and from the moment I arrived, I was welcomed by name. Not because I announced myself, but because the sales representative had clearly shared contacts with the team. Different departments spoke to me about the wedding, shared what they had already prepared, and expressed general excitement. Like, you could tell there was genuine excitement across the board, okay? People were telling me what they did, what they were looking forward to. Even if one person told me they were waiting for leftover butter chicken at the end of the night, still, there was this level of excitement. And a lot of the times, it was when they ran into me at the elevator or at the lounge of the hotel, and even when I went for a massage after the wedding, okay? I wasn't managing them. They were managing the experience, not just for the client, but for me as a planner. But it also went so much deeper than that. They noticed what I drank. They made sure I stayed hydrated while I was on my feet all day, taking care of the clients and the vendors. They were quietly taking care of the person taking care of everyone else. That is luxury. And that is the luxury I want to bring to my clients, which is why you will see teammates assigned to checking up on the bride, which is why at all of my full service weddings, you see makeup artists in washrooms just for touch-ups. There's a reason why these little details are there, because I want the guests to have this experience of being taken care of, whether it is the entertainment upon arrival, the beverage as they walk in, or when we have outdoor events where we're working with catering teams that don't necessarily work in different spaces. So dividing up service and color coordinating the uniforms so that I know who's a lead. Like these little details do matter in those little moments. And you may think, okay, these little moments don't add up, but I promise you they really do. For example, when I was in India sourcing for a client's event, every time I returned to the hotel, the bellman greeted me by name. There was multiple, but this one really stuck out because it wasn't general questions, it was follow-ups. He would ask me how my venue visit went. He would ask me if the meeting turned out how I hoped. He would ask me if I found everything I needed, if there was anything that they could help with, if they could book me a car for the next day, if I said by chance that, oh, I wasn't able to get this, or if they could get someone to go grab it for me. Now, they weren't asking to be polite. They were listening. They were actually listening because they were coming to me with questions in regards to conversations we had previously had and solutions to conversations we had previously had if I had not yet found a solution. And I truly believe like Southeast Asian hospitality sets a standard that is often unmatched because from like hotels to restaurants in Dubai, Bangkok, Bali to India, if you're looking to elevate yourself in your business, like honestly, travel, you'll open yourself up to so many great lessons because hospitality, it's like I personally do not feel it's separate from luxury. I feel like it's foundational to it. For example, okay, another experience that really has stayed with me when I think about traveling is if you know me, you know both my kids have celiac, okay? So what that usually means is when we're out to eat, we're at a restaurant or whatnot, their meals typically take longer because they're being prepared in a separate kitchen to prevent cross contamination. And at this point, like we're accustomed to it. My husband and I, the kids were like, we are all accustomed to it. However, we were traveling and this one afternoon, we were walking back into our room and we ran into our concierge and we casually mentioned where we were going for dinner. Like this was just a conversation we were having. He was asking us about our stay and what our plans are. So we talked about what restaurant we were planning to visit. And throughout that conversation, he was just talking to the kids like he always did, asking them their preferences. One of my kids likes pepperoni pizza. The other one likes cheese pizza, like just little things like this. And we were pleasantly surprised later that evening because when we arrived for dinner, gluten-free bread was at the table at the same time as my husband's like bread and butter, same time as ours. And when our meals came to the table, their entrees were served right before ours. There was no delay, there was no inconvenience, there was no spotlight, just the concierge taking care of things so we could have a meal as a family. I really want you to think about that. I just told you we're accustomed to where my husband and I will get our meals at one time and our kids will get their meals at another time because of their allergy. This concierge went out of his way to ensure that this family meal that we had happened all at the same time so we could all eat together. That, my friend, did not happen by chance. It happened because someone anticipated a need and communicated across departments. And that right there is luxury, and luxury cannot exist without systems. Here's something that needs to be said clearly. A vendor may look like they're luxury on social media, on all of their events. They always do the right things. They have gorgeous fresh flower blooms. There's candles everywhere. There's entertainment. They get raving reviews. But then you inquire, and it takes 30 days to schedule an initial consultation. That is not luxury, no matter how beautiful the work is. And I am including myself in that mix. That is not luxury. If communication feels fragmented, reactive, or unclear, that is not luxury. I understand if they are taking 2 to 3 days to ensure that the date of your event is available, which they should be doing, because it's very hard to have automatic funnels for getting back to clients immediately if it's availability based, as the wedding industry is. But 30 days is not it, because luxury is not chaos dressed up nicely, okay? And this applies across the board. This applies to planners, to designers, to venues, decor company. And one of the places where I see this happen a lot is destination weddings at all-inclusive resorts. But we won't go there. We'll talk about that another day. Like hearing back from some of those companies, and I'm just like, why? Anyways, so a company does not get to declare itself luxury, okay? Luxury is defined by the client's experience, perception, and outcome always, every single time. Once again, I am not excusing myself as I'm currently redefining luxury in my own business. It's something I'd had to unlearn too, and it's something that I am really trying to focus on for 2026 because it's important. Because early on, when I took courses, attended workshops, and observed how other planners worked, I honestly believed I needed to replicate their systems exactly. And over the years, what I've learned is that education is meant to be adapted, not copied. It's taking what you've learned and adapting it to your clients, to your ideal client avatar, to your ideal bride. Because a planner that, most of their clients are, let's just say, and it doesn't happen all the time, but let's say that you're a planner and most of the clients that are coming to you for partial planning, right? The systems and the processes and everything that you're going to build for them is going to be a lot different than for a full service clientele. Because when I shifted from service, like primarily clients in British Columbia, to serving clients worldwide, everything has had to change because I am no longer working in one time zone. Like I have 7 different time zones open up in my phone. I've had to change up communication styles. I've had to change up availability because no longer can my 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time work, because 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time is 1 p.m. Eastern and it is 11:30 p.m. in India. Okay? That's not going to work. Now that I work with like mostly high-level professionals with demanding schedules, and part of the service that I'm adapting is more flexibility. Now, that doesn't mean I'm getting rid of boundaries, okay? It means I'm setting intentional ones. So I've structured my calendar to allow earlier or later calls on specific days rather than every day. So this allows me to have a bit more flexibility for them without jeopardizing the things that are important to me, and why I restructured how many events I take and the types of events I take to begin with. Okay. One of the things I did is I incorporated WhatsApp into my planning process just to help meet clients where they are, even though it is a lot more complex to track. And I'm not even going to lie to you, I have not perfected it yet. It is a work in progress because email is just so much easier because everything is trackable. Everything is in writing. When I do video calls, my AI is taking notes and I'm able to set out deliverables on what the expectations are. And that's not necessarily true for text messages and WhatsApp. So it is something that we are working on. But with who I'm servicing now at these time zones, it's something I've had to implement in order for me to deliver the type of service I want to deliver. And I have not perfected it yet. I am nowhere near perfecting it, but it's just right now at the level of luxury that I want to provide. This requires a level of thoughtfulness, adaptability, and honesty about trade-offs, because I literally have to trade off a little bit of my time in order to give my clients the type of service I want to give them. Because I want my clients to feel like they're checking in at the gold level of the Fairmont, not waiting in that crowded line of, 10 other guests at the front desk. And if you've never experienced both, I highly recommend you do. And I really, truly hope you get a good experience, because every establishment is allowed to have a bad day. Well, I guess I don't know about allowed to, but there's that possibility. It's never going to be 100%. You can always hope it is. But if you haven't yet, I highly recommend just trying these things out, especially as a business owner. This may not apply to brides and grooms as much, but if you are an entrepreneur listening to this, 10 out of 10 recommend. I recommend you, even if it's in your local city, like if you just book the higher level, it will help you in your business in making decisions and doing things in a way that elevates how you can treat your clients, because we learn from experience. When somebody does something that makes us feel good and makes us feel seen and makes us feel valued as a guest or a client, we can replicate that into our business. And one of the things I think I'm really proud of myself for is years ago when Instagram started becoming big. Yes, I am from the ancient times. I am from the caveman days that I started before Instagram. And I remember I took what another company was doing that was not, they were in the wedding industry, but they were not a planner. And I noticed how they shifted their marketing, and I took pieces of it and made them relevant to myself as a planner. And it really helped me shift that focus. And it really helped me show up differently than other planners. Even with this whole like experience and the senses and all that, if you were to go back like 10 years of my marketing and what I used to talk about, I talked about it long before it became this trend. I've talked about it long before, about these multi-wedding day experiences. Like people talk about it now, like wedding weekends and whatnot, but this is literally a core of South Asian weddings. This is a core of what I've known my whole life. So this isn't new to me. It's just being marketed differently now. And everyone's, like, oh my goodness, this is so amazing. So I want you to think about that. Look outside and I get it. Travel isn't always in the budget. I 1000% get it. But there are other ways you can do so locally. You don't have to go far to just experience, like instead of staying at a base room, higher level, instead of staying at a 3-star, move to a 4-star or a 5-star hotel. And those little things do make a difference. If you have never gone in to a luxury retail store and you want to be able to be seen as a luxury provider in the wedding industry, go into a designer shop just so you can experience it. Because if you have never experienced it, it is hard to represent it and to make it a part of who your business and what your business is. Okay? I know there's work to be done, and it's something I'm making a priority in 2026 for myself. As I've said multiple times, by the end of Q1, I hope to have made huge changes, and I said it internally to my team, and now I'm saying it very out loud in this podcast, because that level of service requires structure, not less of it. So we're working on it. Now, let's address couples, because I feel like I've talked a lot with planners, but couples. When you say, I want a luxury wedding, this is what I wish you would understand. Luxury isn't just about what you receive, it's about how you engage with the process. Luxury requires clear decision making. It requires for you to trust in the professionals that you hire. It requires that you are respectful of the planning process and the restraint. Because luxury is not about saying yes to everything. Luxury is knowing when to say no. Two weddings with the same budget can feel completely different because luxury is not about the number. And if you haven't yet, listen to the episode right before this about budgets, okay? Because luxury, it's about how intentionally the money is spent and how supported the couple feels through the journey. And the quiet truth about luxury, because at its core, luxury is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need to prove anything. Luxury lives in the quiet moments. When nothing falls through the cracks, when no one is scrambling, when decisions feel calm instead of pressured, or when all of those things are happening, but you have no idea as the couple or no time to notice because someone has anticipated it and has already addressed the situation. That's probably the clearest mark of luxury, is when the people experiencing it are unaware of how much work it took to make it feel effortless. That isn't magic, it's intention. And I can proudly say there are a lot of planners out there that I know of that is exactly what they do. They are putting out fires long before you realize that there was a fire or notice any smoke. Okay? Before I end this episode, I want to leave you with some reflection. I want you to think about luxury. And when you think about luxury, I want you to ask yourself, Do I want something that looks impressive or something that feels supported? Do I want access or do I want ease? Do I want control or do I want confidence? Because the most luxurious weddings I've worked, they weren't the loudest, but they were definitely the calmest. Now, if this episode shifted how you think about luxury and you're planning a wedding, I've linked my wedding budget clarity workbook in the show notes. It's designed to help you make intentional decisions so your wedding feels aligned, thoughtful, and grounded rather than performative or overwhelming. And if this episode resonated, I'd be grateful if you left a 5-star review or shared it with someone navigating wedding planning right now. Or if you're in the wedding industry, please share it with another industry professional. And remember, luxury is not a label. It's a feeling, and it should feel damn good. If today's episode helped things click or gave you a new perspective, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next. This podcast exists to support planners in doing their best work and to help couples feel informed, confident, and prepared as they navigate their very own South Asian wedding. If there's something specific you want me to talk about, an episode idea you'd love to hear, a planning story you want to share, or a question you're sitting with, there's a link in the show notes where you can send it all in. I promise I will read every submission, and many of them will shape future episodes. You can connect with me at www.jessiekara.com or on Instagram at jessiekara. If you're ready to navigate South Asian weddings with intention and confidence, I'll see you there. And if this podcast is supporting you in any way, I would truly appreciate you taking a moment to leave a 5-star review. It helps more planners and couples find these conversations and keep the space growing. Until next time, trust your perspective and plan with clarity.